Hey Rush fans, this is John Kane, co-host and creator of the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast. Welcome to episodes 56 and 57 of the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast. We are still taking a little bit of a break. We'll be back mid-September. Don't you worry. We'll have all new fall episodes carrying us through the winter and spring, obviously, for the second half of this incredible ride. Post 50 episodes here on the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast. Anyway, this week we have a very special guest, Andre Cholmondeley. And Andre interviewed Alex Lifeson back in April. He was one of the first to sort of break open or open wide this conversation with Alex post-Rush. And he did a fine job. A brief bio on Andre. He's Asheville, North Carolina-based musician, sound designer, guitarist, synthesist, and founder of the object longest-running Zappa-alumni-based tribute band in the world from the early 1980s. He's worked with synthesists in his original music, from early guitar synths and pedals to studying analog synths, musique, concrete, tape splicing, and world music at Rutgers University. Very incredible background. Currently he works with an ever-evolving compact, modular, and guitar setup. Very talented musician. Andre has demoed at trade shows internationally for Moog synths, and usually he's on tour somewhere as a tour manager, tech, or production manager for over 25 years with prog rock, fusion, and blues legends like Al Di Meola, Keith Emerson, Mo, Derek Trucks, 10 years after, Eddie Jobson, and the incredible band Yes. He's toured and performed in more than 10 countries on 2 continents with over a dozen of Frank Zappa's alumni like Don Preston, Ike Willis, Ed Mann, and Napoleon Murphy Brock. He's an interviewer, as we know, and also the show host for the Make Weird Music, a popular YouTube channel and social media presence that promotes unique and envelope-pushing art and artists. And this is how we know him, through that channel, while interviewing Alex Lifeson back in the spring, and he did a fine job. And we want to thank Andre for joining us on Two Guys Talking Rush. We hope you enjoy these episodes. Send us your feedback at twoguystalkingrush@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you soon. And what can I say, folks? Rush rules.
Yeah! Hi, this is Andre Cholmondeley, and you're watching and listening to Two Guys Talking Rush.
Two guys are talking rush. Two guys are talking rush. Two guys are talking rush. Two guys are talking rush. Two guys.
And now, get ready for the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast with your hosts, John Kane and Dan Buxton.
One, two, 1, 2.
Hey.
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 Check,
Hey.
1, 2. You get a little bit reverb on your...
I do, you know.
I like it. You sound epic.
Yeah, you're going for that like arena sound.
You know, I was performing the most recent I did, so I had that on. You want me to back it off a little bit?
Either that or sing us some Journey. I mean,
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, use it or lose it, you know?
What journey do I know?
Oh, please.
When the lights go down in the city. You asked.
I love it. Keep going.
If I knew something from those first prog rock journey.
Keeps on turning.
Let me back this off a little.
That's actually a very good song.
Channel.
Wheel in the Sky is, yeah, I mean, I must give credit where credit is due. They have some good stuff.
Yeah.
Wheel in the sky, keep on yeah.
Oh, that's a good.
Well, we're here to talk about prog rock. That's awesome. Thank you guys for having me. But do you know those early Journey records?
Oh yeah.
And the other one?
Yeah, I mean that stuff is like that's a different band.
Yes.
Like it's just not the same thing at all. And
do you know who the original drummer was in that band?
Ainsley Dunbar,
Ainsley
right?
Dunbar.
It's a good trivia quiz. He's on the records and
Right.
he's in the band.
Yeah.
But when they formed,
But Steve Smith didn't come till later, right? It's
sorry.
Steve Smith.
Yeah, he was
later. Yeah,
late 70s or something.
He was some later person.
Yeah, but the original guy, one of the founders of the band, was Prairie Prince of the Tubes.
Oh wow, I didn't know that one. That's a good one to know.
Yeah, wow. and you know, he talks about it in interviews. They talk about it, and he formed the band. They were doing all this fusion, and then he just couldn't do both.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. So he went on to be with the Tubes thereafter. Yeah. Of course, that was a smart decision.
Great decision on his part. Yeah.
I like your. Hey, we're off to an epic start here at Two Guys Talking Rush. You know, Two Guys Talking.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah. There it is, man. There it is. I just moved to a new spot, so my wife and I bought a new house, and I laugh about this, but it's true. I was most worried about where I was going to put my records. That's all I gave it. My kid could have been sleeping in the attic, whatever. But the records, I need a place for the vinyl. You know.
Sure. So is there some kind of Rush Easter egg? Because of course they sang the words, and the words of the prophet are written on the subway wall. Right?
That's right. Yes.
Very clever.
Yeah. Yes.
Don't try to sneak on.
Andre
gets past this guy.
Andre, how do we pronounce your last name, my friend?
Thanks. That's often an early question. It's Chumley.
Okay.
Silent letters. Yeah.
Okay.
I almost said every syllable of your name, and I would have sounded like a complete idiot. And that must happen often, right?
I give points to whatever people try because what are you going to do? Yeah.
No.
My last name is
English?
Sorry?
Oh, yours. How do you say yours?
Buckspan, but I get the same thing where people are like,
Buckspan. So I love. I was just going to tell you some cultural stuff. I love guessing cultural. So is it Hungarian or Czech?
Polish? It's Polish. Yeah.
That was my third guess. I was in the part of Europe.
Yeah.
And there's some overlap there, as you well know. And so no, I love that name, and I love that whoever along the way kept it. I like that. I like when people don't become Smith.
Well, it knows my grandfather, and then my father was born in Egypt. So I'm the first like Polish Egyptian Jew ever to walk the earth. I think.
What a great combo. What a great story.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And nothing against people named Smith. It's a fine name.
No.
But I love when there's a story. I was born in a British colony, so because of imperialism and slavery and that and colonialism, we all had English names. So it's an English name. It's like Worcestershire or Leicester where there's
okay. All right.
And so if you go to England, there's a Cholmondeley Lane and a Cholmondeley Castle and you hear it on Monty Python skits. So yeah, it's
amazing.
Which colony was it?
I was born in the only English-speaking country in South America, British Guyana, which became Guyana, right on the top next to Venezuela.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, you got my name, Kane, which it was O'Kane, Northern Ireland, and they dropped the O. Because of problems here in the U.S. Yeah, so
now nobody knows.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is my wife just calls me Kane, and that's it. She's called me that since day one we met. So
cool.
Yeah, just drop the John Kane. I should just go with the one thing.
My wife calls
What's
me.
What's in a name? What's in the name? Yeah.
My wife calls me you Jew bastard. Kidding.
Wow. So
no, I joke. She's not.
I was gonna say she goes for the throat. Okay.
Only when I ask her to.
Oh,
sorry. This is getting.
Poland, Polish, Jewish, and Egyptian. That's some world peace, United Nations, right there.
And my wife is Scandinavian.
That's great. That's
so
great.
Our son is just this He can go anywhere.
Citizen of the world.
Citizen of the world, exactly.
I love it. I'd love to go to Egypt one day. Wow, what a place in all of our minds.
I would love to go there too.
And I've been to Israel. Not that all Jews are from Israel, but I've been to Israel, and I've been to Poland a number of times, which is wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've been?
I've never been, but I'd love to go to Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt. I've not been. My sister went, and she sent us back all these pictures of her standing in front of the pyramids and McDonald's. Yeah, that would be something. But yeah, no. There's a lot more of the world. The place I want to get to is Tokyo. Like before I die, that's the place.
Amazing.
Oh, you've been there?
Been to Japan 8 times, and I tell you, you're not incorrect. It's the one. It's
yeah.
I mean, I say that, and then someone's gonna argue. There's no favorite place. I love all the places I've been around planet Earth, but it is uniquely incredible, and I highly recommend figuring out a way to get there, because so many things culturally, and the beauty and the history, the simultaneous high-tech nature and the ancient nature.
Oh yeah, I'd love to go to Japan. You want to go to Japan, Dan, as you said?
Badly. And so my son is now 13 and into these like little anime girls.
Oh yeah.
So he wants to get there like really badly.
Yeah, do it. It's quiet, kind people. That's the thing. The quietness is amazing for an American. Like, we're so loud.
Yeah, we're loud.
Yes.
We're
boisterously loud.
That really gets inside your body. After a couple of days, you're like, oh my God, I'm on the street in downtown Tokyo, and all I'm hearing is car tires on the road.
Wow.
Yeah, like people.
That's craziness.
So yeah.
I have to say, when I saw your interview with Alex, it felt like sort of groundbreaking in a way, in some way. And I was thinking about why it might feel groundbreaking. And I think after it settled in, I suppose this was the first full-length interview that Alex had post Neil passing.
Yeah.
How did that affect your preparation for engaging with Alex?
That's a great question, and I guess the immediate thing is, it wasn't my first thought. So I got to form a few thoughts before that came into, it happened very organically. I was I had met Alex at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You might know that story, a few years before. So there was that ice was broken, and we had a great conversation. We spoke a couple times over the course of those couple of days.
Was it when they were being inducted?
When Yes was being inducted.
Oh, okay. Right.
So people that might not know it, I'm Steve Howe's guitar tech for most of the last decade, and guitartour.net is where I am, and you can see I've worked for all kinds of different prog rock and people, whatnot. So Yes was being inducted. Of course, every Rush fan knows Geddy Lee sat in for Chris Squire. And so the guys were there because they did the induction, right? So they were there. So we got to hang and chat a few times. And at one point, Geddy's tech said, hey, do you mind showing the guys Steve's guitars? Yeah, of course. So that's how we set it up. They came over on some downtime, and it was great. They were like teenagers looking at all these guitars that they grew up listening to.
Yeah.
So that was really a trip for me, because there's the two of them going, oh, dude, that's Telly on relay. Or, oh, wow. Oh, do you remember when we, so that was, and I'm saying, wow. This is amazing. These teenagers listen to these same records. So that was the background. So jump ahead. And so I'm doing these interviews starting last year, kind of returning to something I did in the 80s, like everyone else last year, figuring out a new life. And somewhere along the line, I said, oh, wow, I should reach out to Alex, But it was still pretty fresh. No way I would have even. So jump ahead, and I saw the anniversary of Victor was coming up in a few days. And I said, wow, 25th. This is a big. You know what? This would be a cool idea to talk to Alex, because it's not Rush,
yeah.
and it's not Neil. And I thought, maybe. So I reached out, And he emailed me right back, and he said, I'd love to. I'd really, that would be cool.
Cool.
And so I sensed right away this kind of like, this edge that had lifted a little bit for him. And then somewhere maybe right before the interview, I started thinking about it and looking around and going, wait a minute, he hasn't done an interview. And so then it was tough because I had to kind of forget that and just kind of go, you know what? Let's stay where we always intended, which is, hey, you did this great album a quarter century ago. Let's have that be 80% of the conversation, and then whatever you want. And in the prepping, I asked him. I said, as I do interviews, is there any areas that you prefer to go or you don't want to go? Because sometimes people want to feature something new. And he said, we could talk about anything.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, wow, okay, it's all open. So that's kind of the background. Yeah.
Cool. And we're going to bounce around a little bit, and let's bounce back. Where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid? What did you listen to? What was the type of music you're into? I know you're a musician. Where the body of this show hasn't been built out yet. We'll record the preamble at some point, so there'll be a proper introduction. And we can get into what you do as your full-on career. But I like to talk about the person. Where
I came from,
the origins. Yeah, all of it. Yeah.
That's a great question, and that's the other thing. That's the other kind of elephant in the room. Some people saw me interview Alex and like, who's this guy? Because I don't look like the typical Rush fan. I mean, you have that statistical thing. You see some black people at their shows. It's a long-running joke. You don't see women. But that's the beautiful thing in the last decade or two of Rush. You see Asian people, women. I've got Indian friends from different
Rush are a global band. I mean, I think they are now. I mean, we're resting on these old stories of Rush, right? The everything before.
Exactly. So I just want to frame it with that and say that we've seen that evolution with Rush, and that's been beautiful, seeing that they do have fans around the world. You just didn't see them as much in videos and things. Having said that, my quick background is born in Guyana, 5 months old, moved to Chicago with my parents. My dad was going to college. So I really grew up in Chicago. That's where I learned to read and speak and go to grade school. Ages 10 to, age 5 to 11, I moved back to South America. So I grew up there. And that was interesting, too, because that's right when you watch too much TV and eat too much candy. But I was outside of the USA. So I became this really bookish kid in a country with no television, and in a country with a pretty diverse music thing, to answer your question. My parents, when I was really young in Chicago, that record right behind you, Simon and Garfunkel. So my dad, being a college kid in the late 60s, now I look back, I heard Marvin Gaye, Simon and Garfunkel, Bobby Goldsboro, Miles Davis, Isaac Hayes, reggae, early reggae music, calypso music from the Caribbean, from our culture. I heard the bits of classical music. So Aretha Franklin. So I really grew up with a lot of stuff, and then pretty soon Beatles and all these things. So I was very lucky. By about age 12, I really had heard a lot of different stuff.
Wow.
Musicals especially, and so that was part of it. So I was addicted to music, hooked on music. I would sit there with my little cassette recorder and my little AM FM radio and just listen. So that was it. So I was very when I first heard Rush at age 13, I couldn't believe it. It pulled together.
Where did you first hear Rush? Where were you?
First time I heard them was I was 13 or so, and I very into rock and roll and probably AC/DC and Alice Cooper and stuff, as well as a lot of disco and stuff like Funkadelic and stuff my stepdad was listening to that rock fans weren't listening to, like A Taste of Honey or the Jacksons or Teddy Pendergrass or whatever it would be. So I had this mix of stuff. And I just love the sound of synthesizers. Actually, that was a big early thing for Rush. I love that sound, and I love heavy guitars. And a friend of mine on the phone just said, "Listen to this," and he put it on, and it was Temples of Syrinx.
Wow.
Syrinx, however it's pronounced. And that's it. I heard that beginning, and that's it. Yeah, you never heard a drum fill like that before. You never did. I mean, even things that it came from, like the Who or ELP, which I kind of heard, I just couldn't believe it. The voice, and then you have Geddy's voice, which is a love-hate thing, right? And, you know, loved it right away. I was like, this guy's a freak. This is great. So that's kind of.
May I ask your age?
I'm 56 now.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I'm 51. And
I'm 50. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
good. All right.
generation.
Good.
Yeah.
We understand each other.
That's funny. So, all right, going back to you first hear Rush at 13. How does this shape your path in music? We know what you're listening to, but you become an accomplished musician, and that's a significant thing, especially with synthesizers. You love synthesizers, right?
Yeah.
So what happens? What sort of path is happening for you as you move forward within music?
Yeah, it's funny. As musicians go, I started late. I first picked up an instrument at about age 18.
Yeah,
which for some people is late.
yeah.
You know, so those first couple of years, I really loved instruments, and I wanted to be a drummer at first, like pretty young, and that most parents shut that down. So then there was a gap of time until I realized, you know, I kind of like the guitar. But for a couple of years, I really was romantic about you look in the magazines and you see all the equipment and the gear, and I remember before I played, there's that epic picture of Geddy just kind of leaning up against his synths. And there's a Moog and there's Oberheims and there's all that. I mean, now I know as a technician who has set that kind of stuff up, who owns synthesizers, who performs synthesizers. Yeah. I look back, that was so cutting edge.
Yeah.
I mean, the article probably said so in 1980, but you know, you have no perspective.
Sure.
But looking back, that spaceship kind of thing that he had,
Right.
I just said, I gotta find out what that is.
That photo says a lot more than any verbal description could have done. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that photo is like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah.
There's one or two of them. One of them, he's got the Stiff Records shirt. If it ain't stiff, it ain't worth an F.
Right.
And so the picture says a million things. And
well, were you into other? I mean, there's like Elliot Easton, right, from the Cars. I mean, another major player in the world of synthesized music as it relates to popular music.
Sure. Well, it's funny. Yeah, well, he's the guitarist, right? And
Elliot Easton. I'm talking about.
And I love his playing. It's funny you bring him up because
wait a minute, I'm talking about the keyboardist. Why do I mix up? Greg Hawkins, right? Yeah. Greg Hawkins. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, funny you bring him up because. In that whole period of time, I loved synthesizers. I loved anything with synth. I mean, there's a Steve Miller record called "Fly Like an Eagle," and if people remember, it starts with like 90 seconds of just synthesizer stuff. So that was a real early thing I heard at about age 11, and then Funkadelic, Flashlight, all those kind of. I was like, I got to find out what that is. Yeah. So I was attracted to every hit song then that had that. Yeah. Blinded by the Light or Frankenstein.
Yes.
Or Styx, Come Sail Away. You know, all these.
Yeah. Sure.
Anything with that synthesizer.
What about Rainbow? Were you into Rainbow? Because Rainbow.
A couple years later, sure. When I was 15 or 16, Rainbow Rising.
Yes. Masterful. Yes.
Looking back, I realized all these albums. Those were the ones the heavy guitars loved it, and the rock energy. But anytime there was what I then learned was bass pedals or this. So Genesis. You know, I got into all this stuff. Having said that, I lost the question.
The Greg Hawkins, the Cars. Yeah.
So the Cars. When that first song came out, I can remember. It's one of those things you just stared at the radio like.
I love it.
And so I had that Cars album immediately. I mean, the first one, loved it. And I'm very fortunate that 25 years later, I ended up touring with Greg Hawkes, who was
nice.
Yeah, he was in Todd Rundgren's band
yes.
for many years. And working for Yes, we did a tour with Todd Rundgren. And so when I saw the lineup, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And sure enough, I got to spend the whole summer getting to know Greg. We're good friends now. And getting to talk to him as much as he wanted to, which he was. Some people don't like to talk about it.
Yeah.
He loved it. I mean, he had a great experience. He loved the Cars. And
he gets overlooked as a real pioneer, big time. Do you know that? Do you know that some of that equipment is on auction right now? He's selling off a lot of that on Weiss auctions right now.
I didn't know that. I got to look at that.
Check it out. Yeah.
No, and I think he got a kick that I was such a synth head and that I noticed that, because I said to him right away, I said, I'm not blowing smoke, but you, more than people I love and I've worked with, like Keith Emerson, Rick Wakeman or Eddie Jobson, or I've worked with all these great keyboard players, and they're all amazing. But I said, you, Greg Hawkes, more than any of them, got the sound of synthesizers into more, household radios and driving
he
cars.
Sort of simplified it. He sort of just he turned it into the nugget, because everything else was much more layered and complicated and really deserving of sitting down. But with the Cars, man, it's just like boom. It just got. Dan, I never asked you. Were you a Cars fan?
I love the Cars.
Yeah, me too.
And his keyboard work on Just What I Needed specifically.
Oh yeah, that's great.
He and Elliot Easton, I think, are very similar in that they're very good at finding that one note, that's just at that, where you just didn't think it was going to go that way to that note, but it's exactly the right one.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but they're uniquely gifted people. And, the Cars generally, I felt like never got enough credit for what good musicians they were and what chops they had.
Yeah.
Ben Orr, I thought was fantastic. But totally, I'm definitely showing my age right now.
But Andre, are you getting like avant-garde? Are you getting to craft work?
Yes, I of course, yeah. And just to wrap up a thought on the Cars. Oh, great points, guys, and I concur. And the other word I would throw in is minimalism. Both Elliot
very much so.
And Greg, they went for the simple thing, and then also the songs were so great.
Excellent.
And they both. It starts there. It starts with whoever wrote those songs with a simple acoustic guitar. There's that brilliance of just songwriting. But then to have both of those guys, it's very hard to have this aspect. Both of them to have their ego to be like, I'm serving the song here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I don't really need to do anything on this one. Maybe a little piano pad, a little synth pad, just at the end. That's all.
Yeah.
And so many other people. Well, can I put a solo here? Can I put 5 little bell sounds over here? Yeah. That's hard to do. And so kudos to Greg Hawk for just doing what he needed, and doing it with very inexpensive at the time. He used this thing called the Korg 700, which was. As he said, he's like, dude, I was broke. I couldn't get a mini. So I got a mini Korg.
Yeah.
And in a way, it gave them a unique sound. So having said that, a smooth segue over, because one of the things that I couldn't wait to ask him about was what he listened to. And one of the common things we had was Kraftwerk.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So we talked about Kraftwerk also. Yeah. He was into Suicide. I knew it.
Wow.
Right, you know them?
Yeah, I'm in New York, and
New York.
Even though Alan Vega's been dead for years, there's still all these like old timers who are like, no man, if you didn't see Suicide in 1979, fuck you. Yeah,
I was into them at 1979, but I didn't see them. But there's a Cars song called Shooby Doo. I think it's on. I forget the album, Panorama or something. But it's this weird. It's completely strange, totally like Suicide. And that was one of the first questions I said, dude, you got some weird stuff snuck onto those records. Talk to me about this track. I said, were you into Suicide? He's like, dude, we love Suicide. So that was great. So yeah, I also grew up on Tangerine Dream, Suicide. Kraftwerk, and then pretty soon Eno and Tomita and Vangelis and the whole 9 yards.
Cool.
Klaus Schultz. And then I was excited in the 90s when synths blew up again. Square Pusher, Aphex Twin, Bjork, Chemical Brothers.
Yeah.
Of course,
Daft Punk.
Talking about Rush, and that's why I was blown away when Signals came out, for instance.
Yeah, I was going to say the backdrop, Rush is doing their thing of all
right.
this, right?
There's a branch on the road there because I distinctly remember. Moving pictures right away, blown away, the synths that were in there, and to this day, and you saw in the interview, that last song, "Vital Signs," is so cool because it's really a deep, heavy.
It's one of my favorites on the album, and I'll say I honestly say this when we do ratings of moving pictures, it's up there for me because of that reason, because it's so progressive, and also it's sort of like the connective tissue to what's to come. It's the bridge of it's almost like Rush saying, here's what's coming next.
It's like a demo for Signals. It's like, this is what we're doing next.
They totally on that album. Yeah.
Totally. And hopefully, obviously you guys saw his answers, and that part of the interview is one of my favorite moments, because we kind of talked about that aspect a little bit. Absolutely. I agree with your words. And not only is it predictive of what's coming with Rush, but almost the 80s. Yeah. And also topically too, there's these questions in the lyrics about kind of human emotions and warmth, and how are we going to deal with each other in this. I'm projecting some stuff, but he's kind of talking about AI and kind of saying, where's the human spirit? We have, sample and hold, the one you need. He talks about warming memory chip, and what a great line, because it's crossing over the warmth of human emotions and a memory chip. The brilliance of Neil, of course. Anyone here knows the layers are mind blowing, but that one right there, he hits so much stuff in a non-corny way in 1980.
As you were talking about that, your bandwidth broke up, and it almost was fittingly to the right. It almost sounded like you were. We kind of made sense of what you said, but it was weird how he was talking about vital signs, and your
and then the robot voice started.
It got a little weird.
I love it. But the oscilloscope, the in the video, they use the director, and they use this as sort of they personify the oscilloscope, or the scope, the stereoscope, whatever you want to call it, as a voice in the video. And there's another sort of Easter egg of what's to come, right? The technology. If you ever watch that video, the studio videos, in particular, the song Vital Signs, there are 3. Neil is wearing something on his shirt, and I don't know what is that.
I've always wondered. I think it's. I don't know. But my guesses are it could be one of those things that gave you a click, like for drummers have sometimes like under their
portable click,
and it gives a physical. So it could be that.
Interesting.
Could be that, or it could be the amplification for this headphone monitoring system that was new at the time. Don't know, but as a tech, I've kind of guessed a few times.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'm talking about anyway.
Sure, yeah, that's it.
Totally.
It's a. So all technology there,
I know. So, what's your first big gig? How do you break into the biz, man?
Well,
were you in bands?
Sorry?
Were you in bands?
Yes, I was going to say it came smoothly out of being in a band. So 1983, I start right out, and I have a guitar and synthesizers almost right away. Nice. So I'm tinkering. I'm using reel-to-reel tape recorders. I'm doing soundscapes and things. Rush is coming out with things like Signals. I'm going like, oh my God, this. And then I'm reading for the first time about things like the PPG wave or the Oberheim 4-voice or I'm learning these technical things in the programs or whatever. And so, yes, I was in some bands starting in the mid 80s. And let's say 20 years after being in bands, by now I've got my Zappa tribute band, Project Object.
Yep.
and I've learned by trial by fire, how to take a band on the road. I just figured it out with my own band, with little weekend runs that became 1 week, that became 5 weeks.
Right.
So I learned with some suggestions and help from other friends who were in the biz, but I learned how to be a tour manager, how to book flights, get a couple credit cards up and running, how to rent vehicles, how to plan a tour, how to know that, hey, Chicago is 1 hour earlier on the clock than Cleveland, so we got to leave at X o'clock,
right?
Either before the traffic. Learn all these things that people don't realize about touring, and learn how to, most of all, be a den mother, how to corral 5, 6, 7 other personalities. That's the part that people don't realize. When people ask me about getting in the biz, I say, "Are you ready? Are you ready to be a psychologist,
a babysitter,
a den mother, and a drug and alcohol rehab all rolled into one?"
Yes.
My wife used to be a tour manager when she was like in her 20s. And from that, she eventually has evolved into becoming a second grade teacher, because she felt like I'm already taking kind of like, shall we say, childish people and trying to corral them from place to place. Want to just do it with the real thing, with like small children. But yeah, and my own experience in bands also is the same thing, where it's like people don't realize how unglamorous it is and how much work it is and how much toil there is just getting from point A to point B. They see you on stage and they think that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
No, that's not all there is to it.
I've interviewed 2 for my books, and one was Sam Cutler of the Rolling Stones and Grateful Dead, and just those stories, man. I wouldn't want to deal with that.
That's 2 of the crazy ones. No, I love that story about your wife. I concur. I've also been a substitute teacher for over 20 years.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Believe me.
Yeah. John has done teaching, and so, You learn
I've said that many times. I've said many times to people, I've said, you know what? I actually practice tour managing when I got 4th graders. It's kind of the same.
Oh man, that's even worse. I'd rather baby hold Steven Tyler in a drunken stupor than be a substitute to
So I was doing that for a while. I got pretty good at it. I got us around the USA, and let's see, we went to Germany. 2002. Cool. I got us international into Canada a few times. So I really had some chops. Yeah. And then my very first tour, though, to answer that question, is it went smoothly from that. It was a band called the Grandmothers, who are some of the older surviving guys from the Mothers of Invention.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, and they needed. They were doing a tour around Halloween 2001. And I did a few of them were guests in my band. We did a big show in New York City. And as it's coming up to it, I'm realizing I'm talking to them, and they're talking about these half dozen dates they have after ours. And as we're talking, I'm realizing nothing is planned. They don't have, no disrespect to the guys, but they just hadn't plugged in. They didn't have the vehicle. They didn't have what gear was going to go where. The posters weren't set up. I mean, all these things were flying around. And I kind of said, several weeks out, I was like, so who's taking care of the tour here, guys? And, well, no one. And I was like, you need to hire me, because I can plug you right into my already operating machine. I'll be there with a van the day that you're arriving. And that's what we did. So that was my very first time going on a tour and not being a performer, not having to know 35 songs, not having to get dressed up every day. I was like, wow, I like this. It's all the stuff of touring, but I'm not having to. This is great. And I really loved it. And I think I did come up on that tour and sing backup on like a song for fun. But it was really revelatory. And then it was about 3 or 4 years later, I was working at the School of Rock, which everyone knows.
Yeah, Pete Green.
Paul Green.
Paul Green.
Yeah.
Paul Green.
I was working at one of the Schools of Rock, and we were done for the weekend. We were just done rehearsing some kids. and everyone's kind of having a beer. The kids are all gone, so you have a beer. And hey, what are you doing? So what are you doing? And one of the guys says, well, I was supposed to go do this teching thing, but I don't really want to do it. And he turns to me and says, you should do it. You have a band. You know. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Who is it? He goes, you know who Al Di Meola is? I was like, of course. I was like, no, that's way out of my depth. And he was like, no, you should call. Here's the number. So I pondered it for a day. I was like, you can't do this. And then I said, what the hell? And it was one of the greatest what the hells in my life, because I called, and next thing you know, I was at his place with his sound engineer loading his van.
Wow.
4 days later, I was told to bring a weekend bag with clothes and my passport. So I worked the one night. I did everything correct, and at the end of the show, Al said, "Did you bring your passport?" And I just like you guys asked. All right, you're hired. Good job. See you tomorrow. We're flying to Canada.
Wow.
What? Oh, wow. And that was it. And I spent a year with Al Di Meola.
Wow.
Got to Poland, Israel, Chile.
Wow.
Canada a few times, all around the USA. Really learned a lot. That's really where I learned a ton.
Sure.
I mean, when you're stuck in the Bilbao, Portugal airport, waiting for the 22 pieces of luggage that didn't make it on your flight, and the band's gone, and you've got to figure it out, and all you've got is a flip phone, and it's 2006.
Brutal.
You learn some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to. Yeah.
And that was one of the easy days.
Yeah.
Jesus.
That's amazing, man. Wow. So you have a these are great stories, by the way, and you have a YouTube channel called Make Weird Music. What is that? What is that about? Yeah. What is that?
I'm affiliated with him. It's not my channel.
Okay.
It's a really fantastic guy named Anthony Garone.
Yeah.
Who I met. I was just a fan, actually. I started seeing people I love popping up. Like I love the people, and then I love Alan Ellsworth and Steve Vai and my good friend Robbie Mangano, the guitarist for Sean Lennon and for Ricky Lee Jones, and for a bunch of Zappa alumni. He's a great guitarist, Robbie Mangano. And I suddenly saw him on there, and that's where I was like, wait a minute. And I really started watching some videos. So it's this wonderful site by Anthony Garone that it's just his brainchild of, he wanted a way to feature and highlight and introduce music that's a little weirder. And the funny thing is, it's not just weird experimental like Merzbow noise music or something. Right. That's welcome. But what I've learned is the weird part just means anyone who's breaking the barriers, anyone who's doing it a little differently. So we became friends, and he approached me 6 months ago and said, hey, I'm really enjoying your interviews, because I had just started doing some interviews just to get something going. And he says, I've really been enjoying your interviews. Would you like to do some for my channel? And I was like, that's great. I love it. What a great, collaboration. Yeah, so that's kind of it. So now cool. I have 2 shows on there. I have a show every other Friday night called Confronting Creativity.
Right.
1 week from tonight on the 23rd, I have Marco Miniman, the drummer, and and Randy McStein. And they do some records together. And Marco, you might remember, we mentioned during the Alex interview, because Alex has tracked on some of Marco's records. And then I have another show every other Wednesday called The Gear Spotlight that gets a little more nerdy and specific about software, hardware, recording techniques. So that's what's happening. And Anthony, it's great. He's given me like some carte blanche to do a few other things. So I got a couple other ideas coming on that channel, but really proud to be part of it. I think we're something like 14,000 subscribers, and
pretty good.
We're really starting to do some fun stuff.
Two guys are talking, brush 2 guys. 2 guys are talking, brush 2 guys are talking, brush 2 guys. 2 guys are talking, brush 2 guys.
part 2 of the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast next week.